Harper Quinn had spent most of her 26 years fighting battles she never chose. The latest battle arrived every month in the form of medical bills stacked across her small apartment kitchen table. The debt belonged to her late mother, who had spent 3 years fighting a disease that ultimately won. By the time the funeral ended, Harper inherited not only grief, but also thousands of dollars in unpaid medical expenses. Every morning began before sunrise. She worked as a waitress during the day, delivered groceries during the afternoon, and cleaned office buildings at night. Sleep became a luxury she could rarely afford. Despite working 3 jobs, the debt barely moved. Some nights, Harper sat alone in her apartment staring at overdue notices while wondering how many years it would take to escape a burden she never created. Life had reduced itself to survival. Then everything changed. One rainy evening, Harper received a message from an unknown number requesting a private meeting. Normally, she ignored strangers. This time was different. The message contained information about her debt that nobody should have known. Curiosity defeated caution. The following night, Harper entered an upscale restaurant located far beyond her financial reality. Expensive suits filled the room. Wealth and power lingered in every corner. A silver-haired man waited for her in a secluded booth. His name was Nathan Briggs. Within minutes, Harper understood he was not an ordinary businessman. Nathan represented people who operated in shadows, people who paid for information, people who solved problems without involving police, people who never accepted refusal. Nathan presented a simple offer. A powerful organization needed someone intelligent, unnoticed, and financially desperate. Someone exactly like Harper Quinn. The assignment sounded simple. Gather information, observe, report, nothing more. The target was a man named Vincent Moretti. The moment Nathan spoke the name, Harper felt the atmosphere change. Everyone in New York knew stories about Vincent Moretti. Some called him a businessman. Others called him a king. Most called him something far more dangerous. The Don. Rumors surrounded his empire like dark clouds. Entire neighborhoods respected him. Politicians feared him. Criminal organizations avoided crossing him. For nearly 2 decades, Vincent Moretti controlled one of the most powerful underground networks in America. Very few people had ever gotten close enough to understand how he operated. That was exactly why his enemies wanted answers. Nathan explained that a rival criminal organization had been trying to expose weaknesses inside Vincent's empire for years. Every attempt had failed. Every informant disappeared. Every investigation ended abruptly. Now they wanted someone new, someone nobody would suspect, someone who could quietly enter Vincent's world, someone like Harper. The money offer was enough to erase every debt she carried, enough to completely change her future. For the first time since her mother's death, hope appeared. It came wrapped inside danger. But desperation had a way of making dangerous choices seem reasonable. 3 days later, Harper accepted. Her training began immediately. She received a new identity, new documents, a fabricated work history, a carefully constructed cover story. According to official records, Harper Quinn no longer existed. Instead, she became Claire Morgan, a highly recommended administrative assistant seeking employment within Moretti Enterprises. The false identity was flawless. Every detail had been prepared months in advance. That realization frightened Harper more than anything else. Someone had invested significant resources into placing her near Vincent Moretti. This operation was much bigger than she originally believed. A week later, Harper stood outside the gates of the Moretti estate. The property looked less like a residence and more like a private kingdom. Armed guards monitored every entrance. Security cameras covered every angle. Steel gates stretched across nearly half a mile of protected land. The mansion itself stood on a hill overlooking the city. Power radiated from the estate before Harper even stepped inside. Her stomach tightened. One mistake here could end everything. The interview process moved quickly. Questions were thorough. Background checks appeared endless. Every answer felt like walking across a minefield. Yet somehow she passed every stage. The deeper Harper moved into Vincent's organization, the more unsettling everything became. This wasn't simply a criminal empire. It was a machine. Efficient, disciplined, organized. Everyone seemed loyal. Everyone seemed protected. Nothing resembled the chaos she expected. The stories outside and reality inside felt completely different. For the first time, Harper began questioning the people who hired her. Had they lied about Vincent? Or had everyone else misunderstood him? The uncertainty only grew stronger when she finally caught her first glimpse of the man himself. Vincent Moretti entered a boardroom surrounded by executives and security personnel. The room instantly fell silent. He wasn't loud. He wasn't aggressive. He didn't need to be. Authority followed him naturally. Every person present adjusted their behavior the moment he appeared. Harper expected a monster. Instead, she saw a man whose calm presence was somehow more intimidating than violence. Something about him felt impossible to read. Dangerous. Controlled. Watching. As Vincent passed through the room, his eyes briefly met hers. The moment lasted less than a second. Yet Harper felt as if he had somehow looked directly through her cover story. A cold chill traveled down her spine. Later that evening, while reviewing employee records she was never supposed to access, Harper discovered something that made her blood run cold. Her hiring approval form carried a signature, not from human resources, not from management. The authorization came directly from Vincent Moretti himself. Even more disturbing was the approval date. It had been signed nearly 2 weeks before Nathan Briggs ever approached her with the assignment. Harper stared at the document in disbelief as a terrifying realization began forming in her mind. Vincent Moretti had personally requested her placement inside his organization before she was ever recruited. The discovery of Vincent Moretti's signature haunted Harper Quinn for days. Every time she looked at the authorization file, the same question echoed through her mind. Why her? Out of thousands of people in New York, why had the most powerful don in the city personally approved her placement before anyone even approached her? The answer remained hidden. For now, Harper forced herself to focus on the mission. Life inside the Moretti estate quickly settled into a routine unlike anything she had ever experienced. The compound operated like a self-contained city. Security personnel rotated shifts with military precision. Employees followed schedules down to the minute. Every hallway contained cameras. Every entrance required authorization. Every visitor was documented. Nothing happened without someone knowing. At first, the constant surveillance terrified Harper. She felt watched even when she slept. The guest residence assigned to administrative staff was comfortable, but the feeling of freedom no longer existed. Every step reminded her that she lived inside one of the most protected properties in America. And every day she remained there increased the risk of discovery. Despite the danger, Harper continued gathering information, small details, meeting schedules, financial transfers, security patterns, names of trusted associates. Each night she encrypted reports and sent them through hidden channels to her handlers. The rival organization wanted everything. The more information she provided, the more demanding they became. Yet something unexpected happened as the weeks passed. The image of Vincent Moretti that she carried into the estate slowly began to crack. The stories she had heard painted him as ruthless, cruel, and feared. Parts of that reputation were clearly deserved. People obeyed him instantly. No one questioned his authority. When Vincent entered a room, conversation stopped. Decisions became final. His presence carried undeniable power. But Harper also witnessed things that didn't fit the monster described by his enemies. One afternoon, a longtime employee accidentally made a costly accounting mistake. Harper expected termination. Instead, Vincent personally reviewed the situation and quietly covered the financial loss himself. The employee left the meeting overwhelmed with gratitude. Another day, Harper discovered that Vincent anonymously paid medical expenses for the family of an injured security guard. No publicity, no recognition, no benefit to himself. Just loyalty rewarded with loyalty. The deeper Harper looked, the more confusing everything became. Fear explained obedience. Respect did not. Yet genuine respect surrounded Vincent everywhere. Employees spoke highly of him even when he wasn't present. Senior staff defended him fiercely. Security teams remained loyal without hesitation. Nobody behaved like prisoners. They behaved like people protecting someone they trusted. That realization unsettled Harper more than any threat. Because if Vincent wasn't the villain she'd been told about, then who exactly was she working for? One evening, she found herself watching from a balcony overlooking the estate courtyard. Vincent stood below speaking with several employees. The conversation appeared casual. People laughed. One of the groundskeepers even joked openly. To Harper's surprise, Vincent laughed with them. For a brief moment, the fear Don looked less like a kingpin and more like an ordinary man carrying extraordinary responsibilities. The sight lingered in her thoughts long after he disappeared. Meanwhile, pressure from her handlers intensified. Encrypted messages arrived almost daily. They wanted financial records, internal conflicts, evidence of criminal operations, anything valuable. When Harper's reports failed to deliver major breakthroughs, their tone became harsher. One message contained only a single sentence. "Remember why we chose you." The warning felt less like motivation and more like a threat. Harper knew exactly what they meant. Without their money, her debt would destroy her future. Without their protection, she would become expendable. She was trapped, not by Vincent Moretti, by the people who sent her. As the days passed, something even more troubling began happening. Vincent started noticing her. At first, it was small, a brief greeting, a passing question, a simple acknowledgement during meetings. Nothing significant. Yet each interaction felt deliberate, measured, calculated. One afternoon, Harper delivered reports to Vincent's office. The room itself reflected the man. Elegant, organized, controlled. Large windows overlooked Manhattan, while shelves filled with books lined the walls. Not trophies, not weapons. Books, history, business, philosophy. Vincent reviewed documents without looking up. Harper placed the reports on his desk and prepared to leave. Then he spoke, not to question her work, not to issue orders. Instead, he commented on a book she had been carrying earlier that week, a novel she kept hidden inside her bag. Harper froze. She hadn't told anyone about it. The realization struck instantly. Vincent noticed everything, every detail, every person, every movement. The conversation lasted less than a minute, yet it revealed something unexpected. Beneath the power and authority existed intelligence far deeper than she anticipated. Vincent wasn't simply dangerous. He was observant, strategic, patient, the kind of man who could see patterns others missed. For the first time since arriving, Harper worried he might already know exactly who she was. The thought followed her everywhere. Days later, while delivering files to a lower-level administrative office, Harper accidentally took a wrong corridor. The hallway was quiet, almost empty. As she turned a corner, voices drifted through a partially open door. She recognized one of them immediately. It belonged to a senior member of Vincent's organization. Instinctively, she stopped. The conversation sounded urgent, tense, dangerous. Harper listened carefully. At first, the words made little sense. Then one sentence changed everything. The speaker mentioned confidential information being sold to outside enemies. Someone inside the organization had been feeding intelligence to Vincent's rivals for months. The betrayal had reached levels far higher than anyone suspected. Harper's pulse quickened, because she wasn't the only spy inside the Moretti empire. And according to the conversation she had just overheard, the hidden traitor was someone Vincent trusted completely. The realization struck Harper Quinn harder than she expected. She had entered Vincent Moretti's empire believing she was the only outsider hiding dangerous secrets. Now she knew someone else was working in the shadows. Someone far closer to Vincent than she could ever hope to be. Someone trusted, someone powerful, and someone willing to destroy everything from within. The overheard conversation refused to leave her mind. For days, Harper carefully observed the people around her. Every executive meeting, every financial report, every subtle interaction between senior members of the organization. The atmosphere inside the Moretti empire had changed. The tension was invisible to outsiders, but obvious to those paying attention. Conversation stopped when certain executives entered a room. Security personnel exchanged suspicious glances. Senior managers seemed increasingly defensive whenever financial discussions arose. Something was wrong, and more people knew it than they admitted. Harper began quietly reviewing internal records whenever opportunities appeared. The administrative access attached to her position allowed limited visibility into company operations. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then patterns emerged. Several financial transfers contained inconsistencies. Large amounts of money disappeared into shell companies that served no clear business purpose. Accounts were being manipulated. Documents were altered. Transactions were hidden beneath layers of legitimate operations. The discrepancies were small enough to avoid immediate detection, but large enough to accumulate into millions of dollars over time. Whoever was responsible understood the system perfectly. The deeper Harper investigated, the more alarming the picture became. Several trusted executives suddenly became potential suspects. Each possessed access. Each possessed opportunity. And each had reasons that remained hidden beneath polished appearances. The discovery created a new problem. Harper could no longer tell whether she was collecting intelligence for her handlers or protecting Vincent's empire from collapsing. The line separating enemy and ally had begun to blur. Meanwhile, Vincent Moretti appeared to reach similar conclusions. Though he never publicly acknowledged any concerns, subtle changes appeared throughout the organization. Additional audits were ordered. Private meetings increased. Security protocols quietly tightened. Certain executives found themselves excluded from sensitive discussions. Vincent was investigating, and unlike everyone else, he was doing it without creating panic. The most dangerous leaders rarely announced their suspicions. They simply waited. Harper watched as Vincent moved through his empire with the calm patience of a man assembling pieces of a puzzle. It became increasingly difficult not to admire him. The realization made her uncomfortable, because admiration led to trust. Trust led to guilt, and guilt was becoming harder to ignore. One evening, Harper accidentally discovered evidence connected to an event that had occurred years earlier. A buried report detailed the collapse of a smaller criminal syndicate that once operated under Moretti protection. Official records blamed external rivals. Private records suggested something else entirely. The syndicate had been betrayed from within. Names connected to that betrayal appeared again and again throughout current investigations. The same individuals who benefited years ago still occupied influential positions today. A pattern emerged. Old betrayals were connected to present problems. The conspiracy wasn't new. It had been growing for years. That realization changed everything, because conspiracies that survive for years become powerful enough to challenge empires. As if confirming Harper's fears, rival organizations suddenly grew more aggressive. Business routes came under attack. Shipments disappeared. Protected territories experienced unusual disturbances. Confidential information continued leaking to enemies. Someone inside the organization was feeding outsiders valuable intelligence. The attacks weren't random. They were coordinated, precise, strategic. Someone was preparing for war. Harper's reports to her handlers became increasingly cautious. She deliberately withheld certain discoveries. The decision disturbed her. Weeks earlier, she would have delivered every piece of information without hesitation. Now she found herself protecting Vincent Moretti from the very people who hired her. The contradiction felt impossible, yet it continued growing. Unexpectedly, Vincent began relying on her observations. At first, it involved minor administrative issues, then operational concerns. Soon, her recommendations influenced decisions affecting entire departments. The trust developed gradually, without ceremony, without explanation. Vincent simply listened when she spoke. More importantly, he remembered what she said. Few people understood how dangerous trust could become, especially when it came from someone they intended to betray. Every time Vincent accepted her judgment, Harper felt another layer of guilt settle onto her conscience. The mission no longer felt simple. It no longer felt justified. What began as survival had become something morally complicated. A frightening question kept resurfacing. What if Vincent Moretti wasn't the villain? What if the real threat existed somewhere else entirely? The answer arrived unexpectedly. Late one night, Harper gained temporary access to encrypted archives hidden inside a restricted financial database. She wasn't searching for information about herself. She was searching for evidence connected to conspiracy. Instead, she found something far worse. A confidential file carried the names of multiple informants previously used by the rival organization. Every operation followed the same pattern: recruitment, deployment, information gathering, termination. The final category froze Harper's blood: termination. Informants were never extracted, never protected, never paid long-term. Once their usefulness ended, they disappeared. Several records included photographs. Some names had dates attached, dates marking their deaths. Others were simply listed as unresolved, missing, eliminated, silenced. Harper's pulse accelerated as she continued reading. Then she found her own file. Harper Quinn. The recruitment profile appeared exactly as expected: medical debt, financial vulnerability, psychological assessment, operational suitability. Everything was there, everything except one detail. A final authorization note had been added weeks before her recruitment. The message was brief, cold, terrifying. It stated that after successful completion of intelligence extraction, the asset would be permanently removed to eliminate exposure risks. Harper stared at the words in horror. Her hands trembled. The people who recruited her never planned to honor their promises. The money, the freedom, the future, none of it was real. From the very beginning, she had been sent into Vincent Moretti's empire with an expiration date attached to her name. And now she possessed undeniable proof that the people controlling her mission never intended to let her leave alive. The truth changed everything. Harper Quinn sat alone in her room long after discovering the file that sealed her fate. The screen of her laptop remained open, displaying the same sentence over and over again: asset will be permanently removed to eliminate exposure risks. The words felt heavier each time she read them. For months, she had believed she was risking her life to escape debt and secure a future. Now she understood the reality. She had never been hired to survive. She had been hired to be sacrificed. The realization should have pushed her closer to Vincent Moretti's enemies. Instead, it pushed her closer to Vincent himself. For the first time since entering the estate, Harper no longer viewed herself as a spy gathering information. She viewed herself as someone trapped between two dangerous worlds. And increasingly, only one side seemed to possess any sense of honor. That contradiction haunted her. The emotional conflict grew stronger with every passing day. Vincent Moretti was supposed to be the villain, the feared mafia don, the man whose empire stretched across New York, the man powerful enough to inspire fear in rivals and loyalty in followers. Yet the deeper Harper looked, the harder it became to hate him, because behind the legend stood a man very different from the stories. Fragments of Vincent's past slowly revealed themselves through conversations, archived records, and observations. Harper learned that Vincent had inherited almost nothing. His father died when he was young. His family was targeted by enemies before he reached adulthood. By the age of 22, he was already fighting battles that destroyed men twice his age. He built the Moretti Empire through relentless discipline and sacrifice. Every success carried a cost. Every victory demanded something in return. Friends died. Allies disappeared. Relationships collapsed. Trust became a luxury he could rarely afford. The empire grew stronger. Vincent grew lonelier. The realization struck Harper unexpectedly. Power had not freed him. It had imprisoned him. One evening, she passed through the estate library after finishing work. The room was empty except for Vincent. He sat alone near a large window overlooking the city. No guards, no executives, no advisors. Just a man reading in complete silence. For a brief moment, he looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. The expression vanished seconds later when he noticed her presence. The mask returned. The dawn reappeared. But Harper had seen the truth hidden beneath it, and she couldn't forget it. An uncomfortable question formed inside her mind. What if the strongest people were often the most isolated? The thought lingered. Over the following weeks, small moments continued changing her perception. A long-time employee suffered a family emergency. Vincent quietly arranged transportation and financial support. A junior staff member made a serious mistake. Instead of punishment, Vincent personally helped correct it. Another worker lost a parent. Flowers arrived anonymously. The bill traced back to Vincent. None of these actions generated publicity. None were intended to improve his reputation. Most people never knew they happened, yet Harper noticed, and each discovery made her mission feel heavier, because it became increasingly difficult to betray someone who consistently treated others with dignity. Trust developed gradually between them. Neither acknowledged it directly. It simply grew. Vincent began asking for her opinion during operational reviews. Harper offered insights that helped identify inefficiencies. Her observations uncovered patterns others overlooked. More importantly, her recommendations repeatedly proved correct. For a man surrounded by ambitious executives, reliable judgment became valuable. Vincent remembered that. The trust frightened Harper, because every moment of confidence he placed in her was built upon a lie. Yet despite her guilt, she found herself protecting him. The first incident involved leaked financial information. Harper recognized suspicious account activity connected to one of her handler's contacts. Instead of reporting it externally, she quietly redirected the evidence toward Vincent's internal investigators. The leak was contained. The source disappeared. Vincent never knew who helped expose it. The second incident proved even riskier. A shipment route had been compromised. Harper intercepted encrypted communication, revealing an upcoming attack. Again, she withheld information from her handlers. Again, she found a way to warn Vincent's organization without revealing herself. The attack failed. Lives were saved. For the first time, Harper deliberately worked against the people who hired her. The decision carried consequences. Her handlers noticed changes. Messages became colder, more suspicious. Questions became increasingly direct. Why were her reports slowing down? Why was critical intelligence missing? Why did rival operations continue failing? Harper understood the danger immediately. They were watching her. The people who planned her death had begun questioning her loyalty. Meanwhile, Vincent's reliance on her continued growing. He valued her judgment. He trusted her instincts. And increasingly, he sought her presence during important discussions. Harper tried convincing herself that her feelings were merely admiration, nothing more. Yet deep down she knew the truth. The emotional distance she fought so hard to maintain was disappearing. The mission was no longer about money, or survival, or debt. It had become personal. Every choice now carried emotional weight. Every secret hurt more than the last, and every day made it harder to determine where her loyalty truly belonged. To the people who manipulated her, or to the man she was sent to destroy. The answer terrified her, because she already knew it. Late one evening, Vincent summoned several senior executives to a private meeting. Harper wasn't present inside the room, but she witnessed the aftermath. The atmosphere across the estate shifted immediately. Security doubled. Investigators appeared throughout the compound. Executives looked nervous. Whispers spread quickly. Something significant had happened. Hours later, Harper managed to access portions of the investigation report. The information sent fear racing through her veins. Vincent's internal inquiry had finally uncovered proof. Not proof of the traitor alone. Proof that an active spy existed somewhere inside his inner circle. And for the first time, Vincent Moretti was no longer searching for a betrayal. He was hunting the person responsible. The hunt began immediately. Once Vincent Moretti confirmed that a spy existed within his inner circle, the entire estate transformed into a fortress under siege. Every entrance became monitored. Every communication was reviewed. Every employee found themselves under scrutiny. The atmosphere inside the compound shifted from loyalty to suspicion almost overnight. No one knew who the mole was, but everyone understood what happened to traitors inside Vincent's world. Harper Quinn felt the walls closing in from every direction. For months, she had managed to balance two identities. Now that balance was collapsing. Every security checkpoint felt like an interrogation. Every unexpected glance felt like an accusation. Every knock on her door made her wonder whether her secret had finally been discovered. The most terrifying part was Vincent himself. His investigation was methodical, patient, relentless. Unlike others, he never rushed. He simply gathered information piece by piece until the truth revealed itself. Harper knew that once he reached the truth, there would be no escaping it. The thought haunted her. Security teams began reviewing months of internal records. Phone logs disappeared into evidence files. Background checks were expanded. Digital systems were audited. Nothing escaped examination. Several employees were questioned privately. Some emerged pale and shaken. Others never returned to work. Rumors spread throughout the estate. Fear followed close behind. Unfortunately, innocent people quickly became targets. One accountant was accused after financial discrepancies appeared under his authorization. A longtime logistics manager fell under suspicion because of unusual travel records. Even a trusted security supervisor became part of the investigation. Harper watched lives unravel because of a secret that belonged to her. The guilt became unbearable. Each person questioned represented another consequence of her choices, another innocent caught in a storm she helped create. Yet revealing herself would solve nothing. Her handlers would eliminate her. Vincent would see her as a betrayal, and the fragile trust between them would shatter forever. Meanwhile, outside forces grew increasingly aggressive. The rival organization that recruited Harper sensed opportunities emerging. Their communications became urgent. Their demands became reckless. They no longer wanted information. They wanted results. Pressure arrived daily through encrypted messages, deadlines, threats, warnings. Harper understood exactly what it meant. The people controlling her mission were running out of patience. If she failed to deliver what they wanted, they would move without her, and countless people could die. Desperate to prevent disaster, Harper found herself attempting something impossible. She tried protecting both sides simultaneously. She secretly disrupted rival plans whenever possible. At the same time, she prevented Vincent's investigators from moving too quickly toward conclusions that could trigger violence. Every decision became a dangerous balancing act. One mistake could destroy everything. The emotional strain became overwhelming. Sleep disappeared. Meals went untouched. Her thoughts never stopped racing. The greatest danger wasn't the investigation. It wasn't her handlers. It wasn't even Vincent. The greatest danger was what she felt. Because somewhere along the way, everything changed. One evening, Vincent requested her presence during a private strategy session. After everyone else left, he remained seated near the large conference table overlooking the city skyline. For several moments, neither spoke. The silence felt strangely comfortable. Finally, Vincent broke it. He spoke about trust, about betrayal, about the burden of leadership, not as a Don, not as a powerful man, simply as someone exhausted by years of disappointment. Harper listened quietly. The vulnerability surprised her. Vincent rarely revealed anything personal. Yet now he was sharing pieces of himself he trusted almost no one else to see. He spoke about losing friends, about sacrificing relationships, about constantly wondering whether loyalty was genuine or purchased. Power, he admitted, often felt more isolating than rewarding. The conversation lasted less than an hour. Its impact lasted forever, because when Harper returned to her room that night, she could no longer deny the truth. She had fallen in love with Vincent Moretti. The realization hit harder than any threat, harder than any investigation, harder than any danger surrounding her. Love changed everything. Love made the mission impossible. How could she continue spying on him now? How could she deliver information that might destroy him? How could she betray the one person who had shown her trust when everyone else saw her as disposable? The answer was simple. She couldn't, and that terrified her. Days later, events accelerated dramatically. Vincent's investigators uncovered a hidden communications network used by the rival organization. Several encrypted files were recovered. Most contained operational information. One contained something far more dangerous: personnel records, recruitment histories, asset profiles, evidence. The discovery immediately moved to Vincent's desk. Harper didn't know exactly what had been found, but she sensed disaster approaching. The atmosphere around the estate changed again. Security intensified. Executives looked nervous. Investigators worked around the clock. Something important had surfaced. Something significant enough to alter everything. Then came the moment Harper feared most. A trusted member of Vincent's security team delivered a sealed folder directly to his private office. The contents had been recovered from a compromised rival server. Names, photographs, background investigations, operational assignments, the entire network. Vincent spent hours reviewing the material alone. Nobody interrupted him. Nobody entered the office. Nobody knew what he was reading. Outside, Harper felt anxiety tightening around her chest. Every instinct warned her that the end was approaching. The truth had survived hidden for months. Now it was finally catching up. As midnight approached, Vincent remained inside his office. The city lights reflected across the windows behind him, while file after file passed through his hands. Then he stopped. A single page caught his attention. A photograph, a name, a complete recruitment profile. His expression hardened. The room fell silent. For a long moment, Vincent simply stared at the evidence before him, because at last he knew exactly who Harper Quinn really was, and why she had entered his life in the first place. Harper Quinn barely slept. The moment she sensed Vincent Moretti had uncovered her true identity, she knew there was no escaping what came next. Every hour felt borrowed. Every breath felt temporary. Inside the Moretti Empire, spies rarely received second chances. They disappeared. Quietly, permanently. By sunrise, a message arrived requesting her presence in Vincent's private office. No explanation, no details, just a location and a time. Harper understood immediately. The truth had finally caught up with her. As she walked through the estate corridors, an unsettling calm settled over her. Fear had exhausted itself. There was nothing left to hide, nothing left to protect. The office door opened. Vincent stood near the large windows overlooking Manhattan. His posture remained composed, his expression unreadable. The thick file containing her entire history rested on the desk beside him. Harper's stomach tightened. This was the end. The room felt impossibly silent. Vincent didn't immediately speak. He simply studied her, not with anger, not with hatred, with disappointment. For some reason, that hurt more. Finally, he opened the file. Inside were photographs, financial records, recruitment reports, and communications linking Harper directly to the rival organization. Months of deception summarized in neat pages. Every lie, every secret, every hidden motive. Vincent knew everything. Harper expected security guard to enter. She expected weapons. She expected judgment. Instead, Vincent asked a single question. Why? The simplicity of it shattered her remaining defenses. No accusations. No threats. Just one word. Why? For the first time since entering his world, Harper told the complete truth. She spoke about her mother's death, the crushing medical debt, the collection notices, the endless jobs that barely paid enough to survive. She explained how desperation slowly erased good judgment, how fear made dangerous choices seem reasonable, how a carefully planned offer arrived precisely when she was most vulnerable. The story poured out of her. No excuses, no attempts to justify herself, only truth. The rival organization knew exactly how to manipulate her. They studied her weaknesses. They offered money she desperately needed. They promised safety, a future, a way out. What they never revealed was that she had always been expendable, a disposable asset, a temporary tool. When Harper finally finished speaking, silence returned. Vincent listened to every word. His expression remained calm, yet something behind his eyes had changed. Because for the first time, he wasn't looking at a spy. He was looking at someone who had been used. Someone trapped by people far more powerful than herself. An intellectual truth emerged inside Vincent's mind. The most dangerous betrayals often begin long before betrayer ever appears. Someone else had designed this entire operation. Someone else had orchestrated every step. Harper wasn't the architect. She was the weapon. And weapons never choose who pulls the trigger. That realization changed everything. Instead of focusing on Harper, Vincent turned his attention toward the people who recruited her. A deeper investigation began immediately. The evidence recovered from rival servers revealed connections nobody expected. Financial transactions linked multiple organizations. Executives previously considered loyal appeared repeatedly throughout secret communications. Corrupt politicians surfaced. Business partners emerged. Several individuals inside Vincent's own extended network had quietly assisted the operation for years. The conspiracy was far larger than anyone imagined. Harper's recruitment was only one piece of a much bigger plan. The true objective had never been information. The objective was collapse. Vincent's empire, his reputation, his alliances, everything. The discovery shocked even senior members of the organization. Trusted names suddenly became suspects. Long-standing partnerships crumbled overnight. For years, enemies had been building a hidden network around Vincent, patiently, carefully, waiting for the perfect opportunity. Now the entire structure stood exposed, and Harper had unintentionally helped uncover it. That fact mattered. Vincent recognized it. Despite her deception, she repeatedly protected his organization. She disrupted attacks, prevented leaks, identified threats. Every investigation now confirmed what Vincent had quietly suspected. If Harper truly wanted to destroy him, she could have done far worse. Instead, she repeatedly chose to help, even when it placed her own life at risk. That choice couldn't be ignored. For the first time since entering the office, Vincent closed the file. The decision he made next surprised everyone, including Harper. She wasn't arrested. She wasn't executed. She wasn't expelled. Instead, Vincent offered her something nobody expected, a chance, one opportunity to prove where her loyalty truly belonged. The offer carried enormous risks. Many advisors strongly opposed it. Several demanded immediate punishment. Others argued she remained a security threat. Vincent listened to every objection, then made his decision anyway. Trust, he believed, was not measured by perfection. It was measured by what people chose after failure. Harper accepted without hesitation, not because she wanted survival, because she wanted redemption. The path ahead would not be easy. Nothing between them could return to what it was. Too many lies existed. Too much damage remained. Yet surprisingly, their emotional connection survived. Fragile, wounded, but alive, trust did not return instantly. It rebuilt itself through actions, one decision at a time, one risk at a time, one truth at a time. For the first time since entering Vincent's world, Harper no longer worked for hidden handlers. She worked beside the man she once betrayed, and together they prepared for what came next. Because the conspiracy had not ended, it had only been exposed. Across New York, powerful enemies realized their network was collapsing. Panic spread. Plans accelerated. Emergency meetings were held. Orders were issued. The final phase of the operation was activated. While Vincent focused on rebuilding trust and dismantling hidden corruption, his enemies prepared something far more devastating, something designed to destroy everything in a single blow. Late that night, reports began arriving from every direction. Attacks on business assets, cyber intrusions, financial disruptions, assassination attempts, simultaneous strikes against multiple Moretti operations. The war had finally begun, and before sunrise, a coordinated attack was launched against Vincent's empire from every direction at once. The war began before midnight. Within minutes of the first attack reports, Vincent Moretti's empire was thrown into chaos. Operations across New York suddenly went dark. Warehouses stopped responding. Financial servers crashed. Communication channels failed. Businesses connected to the Moretti organization experienced simultaneous disruptions. For years, Vincent's enemies had carefully prepared for this moment. Now every hidden piece of their conspiracy moved at once. The objective was simple: destroy 20 years of power in a single night. Inside the command center beneath the estate, tension filled the air. Screens flashed with incoming reports. Phones rang continuously. Trusted lieutenants rushed between stations. Nobody had ever seen attacks on this scale, not even Vincent. Yet amid the chaos, Vincent remained focused. Panic spread quickly through organizations. Leadership could not. His calm became the foundation, holding everything together. But even he understood the brutal reality. The empire stood closer to collapse than ever before. An uncomfortable truth emerged during those first hours. The conspiracy had penetrated deeper than anyone imagined. Financial sabotage activated from inside protected accounts. Sensitive information leaked through internal systems. Security protocols failed at critical locations. Someone inside the organization was still helping the enemy. Then the masks finally came off. Several respected executives disappeared without warning. Others openly switched sides. Men who had worked beside Vincent for years revealed their true loyalties. The betrayals hit harder than any bullet, because betrayal carried something violence never could. Trust. Once broken, it damaged everything around it. Harper watched the revelations unfold with growing horror. Many of the names appearing on intelligence reports were people she recognized, individuals who publicly praised Vincent, people who attended family gatherings, people who claimed loyalty. Now they stood exposed as conspirators. The emotional cost was enormous, yet there was no time to process it. The attacks continued spreading. Harper immediately became essential to survival efforts because, unlike anyone else in the room, she understood how the enemy operated. She knew their recruitment methods, their communication patterns, their decision-making structures. Months spent working for them now became an unexpected advantage. Information she once gathered against Vincent now helped save him. Throughout the night, her analysis prevented multiple disasters. She identified compromised assets, predicted attack targets, exposed hidden connections. Again and again, her warnings arrived just in time. Each success strengthened Vincent's trust, not because she was perfect, because she was choosing loyalty when it mattered most. A powerful realization settled inside Vincent. Character was not measured by mistakes. Character was measured by what someone became afterward. Outside the estate, the situation worsened. Corrupt officials who secretly worked with the conspiracy finally revealed themselves. Law enforcement raids targeted Moretti properties. Politicians publicly condemned Vincent. Business licenses were suspended. Bank accounts were frozen. Media outlets suddenly released damaging stories. Every institution the conspirators controlled activated simultaneously. The attack wasn't merely criminal. It was political, financial, personal, comprehensive. Someone had designed this war years in advance. Vincent responded with relentless determination. Throughout the night, he traveled between threatened locations despite constant danger. His advisors repeatedly urged caution. He ignored them. If his people were risking their lives, he would do the same. Twice he narrowly escaped assassination attempts. Once during a convoy ambush. Again during an attack on a distribution center. Each confrontation reminded everyone why Vincent remained feared throughout New York. Not because of wealth, not because of violence, because he refused to run, even when survival demanded it. As dawn approached, the Empire suffered devastating losses. Several longtime allies were gone, some killed, others arrested through fabricated evidence. A few simply vanished. Each loss weakened the organization further. Harper witnessed hardened men grieving in silence. Years of friendship erased overnight. Victory, she realized, would come with a terrible price. Then came the secret that changed everything. During an emergency review of encrypted files recovered from a trader's office, Harper uncovered documents nobody expected. The conspiracy was never created by rival syndicates alone. A hidden figure stood behind all of it. A man once connected to Vincent's earliest years. A former mentor. One of the people who helped him build his empire. For 2 decades, resentment had quietly grown. While Vincent expanded his influence, the mentor believed he had been forgotten, discarded, replaced. Every betrayal, every financial attack, every assassination attempt, all traced back to that bitterness. The revelation stunned everyone. The true enemy had been hiding in plain sight for years. The final confrontation became unavoidable. As sunlight began creeping across the city skyline, Vincent assembled his remaining loyal forces. The location of the conspiracy's leadership was identified. The war would end there, one way or another. What followed was the most dangerous operation of Vincent's life. The confrontation lasted hours. Violence erupted across abandoned industrial property near the waterfront. Loyalties were tested. Old alliances shattered. Hidden truths surfaced. By the end, the conspiracy finally collapsed. Its leaders were captured or eliminated. Its financial network seized. Its influence destroyed. Against impossible odds, Vincent's empire survived. Barely. As exhausted survivors returned to the estate, a strange silence settled over everyone. The war was over. The threat was gone. For the first time in months, nobody needed to fight. Harper searched for Vincent among the returning vehicles. She expected to see him coordinating recovery efforts, planning the future. Instead, his vehicle never arrived. At first, nobody panicked. Then concern spread. Hours passed. No contact. No messages. No sightings. Vincent Moretti had vanished. Security teams searched the city. Private investigators mobilized. Every loyal contact received instructions. Nothing. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. Late that evening, Harper entered Vincent's private office. The room stood empty. Neatly arranged on the desk sat a single envelope addressed to her. Her hands trembled as she picked it up, because after surviving the worst night of their lives, Vincent Moretti was gone, and the only thing he left behind was a letter. The empire survived. Barely. In the weeks following Conspiracy's collapse, New York watched the Moretti organization rebuild itself from the ruins of betrayal and war. Warehouses reopened. Business networks stabilized. Lost alliances were repaired. New security structures were implemented. Every day brought another challenge. And through it all, one person stood at the center of recovery. Harper Quinn, the woman who had entered the organization as a spy, now found herself overseeing critical operations while Vincent Moretti remained missing. At first, many questioned her authority. Old suspicions lingered. Some remembered the truth of how she arrived. Others quietly wondered whether Vincent's trust in her had been misplaced. Yet every decision Harper made strengthened the empire. She worked longer hours than anyone, reviewed every report, met every crisis head-on. The same intelligence that once gathered secrets now protected them. Gradually, resistance faded. Respect replaced doubt. For the first time in her life, Harper was not surviving. She was leading. But no success could erase one question. Where was Vincent? Search teams continued investigating every lead. Private contacts searched across multiple states. Trusted allies reached into networks beyond American borders. Weeks passed. Nothing. The absence became a shadow hanging over everything. Then an answer finally emerged. Not through intelligence. Not through surveillance. Through a letter. A second letter arrived at the estate nearly 6 weeks after Vincent's disappearance. Inside was a simple explanation. Vincent had not been kidnapped. He had not been killed. He had vanished by choice. The final conspiracy had reached further than anyone realized. Several hidden financial partners remained active. A few surviving enemies still possessed enough influence to threaten the empire. Vincent had disappeared to finish what the war started. Alone, the revelation stunned everyone. Even Harper, especially Harper, because buried within the letter was a sentence she could not stop rereading. Some battles must be fought without risking the people who matter most. For the first time, she realized his disappearance was not abandonment. It was protection. Months later, the final remnants of conspiracy collapsed. Arrests spread across multiple jurisdictions. Financial networks disappeared. Corrupt officials lost their positions. The hidden empire built against Vincent finally crumbled completely. The war was over. Truly over. Then, one rainy autumn evening, Vincent returned. No dramatic announcement. No public spectacle. Just a black sedan rolling through the state gates as employees stared in disbelief. Word spread faster than wildfire. Within minutes, the entire compound knew. The Don was home. Harper stood frozen when she saw him step from the vehicle. Older, more tired, a few new scars visible beneath the collar of his coat, but alive. The relief hit harder than she expected. For a moment, all the months of uncertainty vanished. Vincent simply looked at her and smiled. Some absences reveal feelings words cannot explain. The following weeks changed everything. Vincent gathered leaders from every division of the organization. For the first time, the complete truth became public. Not only Harper's role as a spy, but everything that followed. Her warnings, her sacrifices, her loyalty during the Empire's darkest hours. The room listened in complete silence. Many had only known fragments. Now they understood the entire story. A woman recruited by enemies, manipulated by desperation, given opportunities to betray them repeatedly, yet choosing loyalty every single time. When Vincent finished speaking, nobody questioned her place anymore. Nobody doubted her value. The respect she earned was no longer borrowed from Vincent. It belonged entirely to her. That realization affected Harper more than she expected, because for years she viewed herself through the lens of failure. The daughter overwhelmed by debt, the woman desperate enough to become a spy, the outsider pretending to belong. Now she saw something different, someone who survived, someone who grew, someone worthy. One evening, weeks after Vincent's return, the two stood overlooking the city skyline from the estate's highest terrace. The same city that once terrified Harper now stretched before her like a map of everything she had overcome. The silence between them felt comfortable, earned. Vincent finally spoke, not as a Don addressing an employee, not as a leader giving orders, as a man speaking honestly. He explained how he first noticed her before she ever entered the organization, how he recognized something beneath her circumstances, potential, strength, a refusal to surrender, the qualities he respected most. Harper listened quietly. Then came the realization that changed everything. Vincent had known far more than she ever suspected. Not every detail, but enough. Enough to understand she was being used. Enough to see a woman drowning beneath burdens she never deserved. Enough to believe she could become something greater. The emotional truth struck harder than any revelation before it. Vincent never saw her as a weapon sent by enemies. He saw someone worth saving long before she believed she deserved saving herself. The city lights shimmered below as Vincent reached into his coat pocket. Inside rested a small velvet box. Not extravagant, not symbolic of wealth. Something far more important. Trust, family, future. The Moretti name carried enormous weight. Power, responsibility, legacy. For decades, people feared it, respected it, protected it. Vincent placed the box in Harper's hands. His gesture carried no pressure, only certainty. A permanent place beside him, not because she was perfect, not because she never made mistakes, because when betrayal became easier than loyalty, she chose loyalty anyway. Harper opened the box slowly. Tears filled her eyes. For years, life had taken things away from her. Security, family, hope. Now, for the first time, life was offering something back. A future, a home, a name. As the city stretched endlessly beneath them, Harper understood how far her journey had taken her. From spy, to survivor, to trusted partner, to something neither of them expected when this story began. The Don did not offer Harper his last name because she was perfect. He offered it because she chose loyalty when betrayal would have been easier. And as she looked toward the future standing beside him, one final truth became impossible to ignore. Some people enter your life to destroy your future. Others enter it to become your future.